If there is anything that computers have taught us, it's that just one decision, the tiniest ripple in the fabric of time, can have dire consequences. It is exactly why you can never be too careful when approaching something that you may not fully understand. Well, in the late 1990s, a simple oversight in some video game code would lead to a worldwide recall that would nearly cost a company their entire livelihood. A relatively new video game company called Bungie released the sequel to their successful Myth franchise, Myth 2 Soulblighter, a fantasy game that immerses the user into a world of fighting warlocks and ghosts, would soon be leaving the user fighting for all the files on their hard drive. If you were running Microsoft Windows and, for whatever reason, needed to uninstall or reinstall Myth 2, your entire system would be completely wiped beyond repair. This was a catastrophic issue that was thankfully caught quite early on, but the damage was still done. Bungie was given no other choice but to buy back the 200,000 copies of the game that were just about to hit store shelves to replace them with a patched version. The ordeal costed Bungie nearly $1 million, and they even put out a public announcement urging others to beware of this devastating bug. It's quite unsettling when mass destruction just shows up without an immediate explanation, which is then accompanied by a visceral sense of dread of not knowing what this unknown force's capabilities are or what will even come next. But when you really investigate what happened to cause all these problems, it's remarkably simple, and the simplicity of this bug is very reflective of the overall nature of computers at the time, both in terms of how they were designed and how they were used. It's also indicative of just how vulnerable these machines were, particularly those that ran Microsoft Windows. It was a very costly lesson on Bungie's end, but its long-term impact may have actually been very beneficial for the company and the customs of cybersecurity in general. Because we typically learn more of what not to do when using new and unfamiliar technology, which is certainly a case of history repeating itself. Our constant adaptation to new obstacles that show up is the reason that our TVs don't get hijacked all the time, or our phones randomly start ringing. Ow! Ew!
Hello?
I'm gonna chop you up like liver.
Who is this? How did you get this number?
I got it from blankpages.com, from a data broker. Let's play a game called Guess What Part of the House I'm in.
Nice one, Steve. Good Halloween costume. Excuse me. Oh, you want to play Psycho Killer? Can I be the helpless victim? I've got to stop drinking. This was my life after using Delete Me. Thanks to them, they removed my personal data, like my phone number, address, age, and other things, from search results and hundreds of data broker websites to better protect me from identity theft, stalking, or doxing. They even gave me a privacy report just a week later to show all the work that they did for me. Now my phone calls sound more like this. Hello? Sign up with my code joindeleteme.com/nationsquid20 to get 20% off your consumer plan. That is joindeleteme.com/nationsquid20. Thank you to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. So what is exactly happening with Myth 2? Well, it all had to do with a specific glitch in the game's uninstall tool and the way it reacted to the directory of where the game was located. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the more technical aspects of computers, you might think that an uninstall tool for a program is just not very necessary. I mean, can't you just right-click on the program and delete it? Well, in some cases, yes, you can. This is actually the default setup for uninstalling programs on macOS. You quite literally just look for it in your applications folder and toss it in the trash. But macOS and Windows are set up differently, and it was even more different back in the 90s. Yes, sometimes you certainly could just right-click on the program and simply delete it, but there are problems here. Whenever you do install something, especially on Windows, it creates a folder in a certain part of your computer, which we call a directory, where it puts all the files for that program, which it can always navigate to whenever a specific program calls for something. This is different from macOS's app packaging system, where everything is in one place. In fact, something much more complex, like a video game, can have multiple directories on Windows, many of which can be in entirely different locations. This is also not including the registry keys for the program. It gets messy and complicated. This is exactly why just right-clicking on a program and deleting it in Windows is not enough. You still have all these directories and additional data that's left behind. So that's where uninstall tools are handy. You just open the uninstallation wizard and it will delete the program and all that extra stuff for you, where you don't have to worry about it. Until you do. Keep in mind that again, this was the 90s, where hard drive space was much smaller and therefore much more valuable. Of course, video games were also lighter back then, but it was customary to delete any programs you weren't planning on using in order to really maximize the storage of your PC. And Myth 2's uninstallation wizard contained a huge problem. Rather than doing the routine practice of just deleting everything related to the game inside that directory, it would just delete the whole directory. For example, if you decided to install Myth 2 in your special video games folder that you created, all your other video games would go with it. If you installed it in your program files directory, all your other programs would go with it. But it gets much worse, because then there's people who decide to install the game in something called the root directory. File systems are set up in a hierarchy structure. Your computer is basically one giant folder. So when you create a folder on your desktop, you're essentially creating a folder within a folder within a folder, and so on. The root folder contains everything on your computer, all your files, and all of Microsoft Windows. I assume you see where this is going. If somebody installs Myth 2 within their root directory and then decides to uninstall it, they are going to delete their whole entire PC with it. And that's what happened, specifically to one of Bungie's publishers. Her contract for the game was completed, so she decided to clear up some space on her computer and uninstall the program. Sure enough, it was located in her root directory, so she completely wiped her files. Reportedly, her computer wouldn't even boot up into Windows anymore. The issue within the code was quickly discovered and fixed, but there was a problem. The game was scheduled to release in just a couple of days. Heck, copies of the game were already on their way to the retail stores they would be sold at. So Bungie had to make a very calculated risk. They had two options. They could either say nothing and just hope that this doesn't become as big of an issue, or two, they could recall all of the outgoing copies of the game and put out an announcement telling everybody about this big glitch. It would cost them a lot of money and be incredibly embarrassing, but it was the honest thing to do, and it could even save their reputation as a company. So Bungie took the high road and owned up to their mistake. Their big financial hit ended up successfully replacing most bad copies of the game just 2 days after its initial release, so it did not become as widespread of an issue as it could have, aside for just a handful of people. For those who still had the original copy, Bungie instructed them to just take the program and throw it in the recycle bin. Again, it wasn't going to get rid of everything, but it sure is better than losing all your files. Bungie's sacrifice ultimately saved the game. It received very good reviews from critics and was Bungie's highest-selling game at that time, further bolstering their name within the gaming space. Now the question is how something so simply dangerous could have even happened in the first place. I mean, even in the 90s, you'd think Windows would know better than to just let anyone add anything they want to the root directory willy-nilly. Right? Well, no. And the reasons for that were unintentional as well as intentional. The obvious part of this answer is that in the 90s, computers were new for everyday people. Therefore, it was a whole new space, and even the most advanced people at that time didn't understand it in the way we do now. This meant that we didn't fully understand what people were capable of, accidental or not. In fact, many of the reasons our computers are so secure now is because we've learned from catastrophic events of the past. It's the reason why things like the I love you virus and a million other computer worms were popping up everywhere. We just didn't know any better. And when we look back at these viruses, we see just how simple they are in nature. And they do things that Windows would so obviously not allow today. But it's because of these things that we do know better. Yes, back then you quite literally could just drag any file or folder that you wanted directly into the root directory without any objection. Nowadays you get a prompt telling you that you have to run as an administrator first, though even then, typically all someone has to do is just click continue, and they can continue to do this. So it's not much of a barrier to entry. But this is somewhat intentional. Windows, on purpose, doesn't lock everything down, because they want to give the user a lot of flexibility. But as a tired Uncle Ben once said, with great power comes great responsibility. If you know what you're doing, having all this power is great, but the slightest mess up can create an avalanche of problems. There's even some debate that Windows does this a little too much. A great example of this would be the whole CrowdStrike fiasco from July of 2024, where millions of computers faced intense outages. This was all because CrowdStrike software had a little too many privileges within Windows, and so when they pushed out an update that contained code that was faulty, it took the entire system down. The reason you always hear about Windows encountering so many more problems than something like macOS is 1, it's more popular, so there's more demand to create malicious software for it, and 2, macOS is a lot more restricted and locked down. It can't hurt you as much because you can't change it as much. So it once again brings up an important debate a lot of people have. Should it really be this easy to add things to the root directory? Do the pros weigh out the cons? I mean, it's not like Windows anticipated that some really weird glitch like this would happen. In fact, it wasn't even just Myth 2. A sequel to the pool of Radiance games included a bug where important system files would get deleted if you uninstalled the game, and this was around the same time. However, this game did not take the Bungie route, and it was instead released as is, and the game's negative reviews did reflect that. It even happened much more recently in 2018, with the game Deltarune featuring the exact same glitch as the one seen in Myth 2. It's also important to note that back then, a lot of installers would recommend the root directory by default. So, a non-tech savvy user at the time wasn't going to give much thought to something being installed there, and the address for the root directory is a lot easier to remember. So it would often become an installation spot that users would get accustomed to. I could imagine this very well happening with something like Myth 2 back in 1998. And I think that this entire story serves as a cautionary tale for how, whenever we are given lots of power, we need to confront it very delicately. It was reported that Myth 2's development was quite rushed. Bungie was trying so hard to ride on the wave of the first Myth game, which was very popular. They got the sequel out just around a year later. We've seen time and time again what rushing stuff does, like with Windows Vista or even Game of Thrones as a non-tech example. But going back to the whole butterfly effect concept we discussed at the beginning, because Bungie decided to own up to their mistake, we got Halo. Who knows where they would have been had they not done that? But how about we try this bug out for ourselves? Now, according to all my research, it appears that this first edition of Myth 2 that included the bug is now lost media. I unfortunately could not find any copies online that in fact featured it. So I'm going to be recreating, to the best of my ability, what this most likely would have looked like. As always, do not try this at home, especially when dealing with critical software such as this. With that said, let's begin. I am currently running Windows 95, and as you can see, I am also running Myth 2, which I have installed in my root directory. Now I've decided I am going to uninstall it. So we'll go ahead and open the uninstaller here. Here we go. Keep in mind that a lot of the files in the root directory are currently being used to power this computer, so they can't exactly be deleted easily while things are running. As you can see, it's hanging quite a bit. Well, let's go ahead and try rebooting and see what happens. Looks like it didn't get everything in time because I'm still getting a prompt, but it sure got enough to prevent Windows from powering on. Now this is no longer a myth. Okay. Thank you to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. Use my link in the description to get your data removed from the internet for 20% off. A special thanks to my patrons and channel members for making this video possible. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and click the notification bell so that you never miss a future video.